1,
2,
3,
4.
Monster movie.
Fun time, go! Monster movie.
Fun time, go. Monster.
Movie.
Fun time.
Go!
Monster movie. Fun time, go.
With Precious D and Honeybee.
Fun time, go!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and neighbors, welcome to Monster Movie Fun Time Go. I am your host, Precious D.
And I am your other host, Honey Bee.
Honeybee and I are two best friends making our way through the history of kaiju movies. We started in 1933 with King Kong, and today we are in 2014 with Monsters Dark Continent, also known as Monsters 2 Dark Continent or just Monsters 2. Folks, are running a little behind because Honeybee's been sick. So I'm going to do a minimum of editing on this episode to get it out the door. Hopefully today. Let's see. Directed by Tom Green, not that Tom Green. Written by Jay Basu and Tom Green. And October 9, 2014, 119 minutes from the United Kingdom, but not so as you'd notice, in color. I don't see a budget, but the box office, 52,750.
Ouch.
That doesn't seem like enough to pay for anything, any movie.
Yeah.
Even, especially not one that's got some special effects in it. Jesus.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Wow. Honeybee, what are your initial thoughts of Monsters Dark Continent?
I was not ready for this roller coaster of a movie, especially after the first one. Like, I just thought the first one wasn't as kind of serious as this one. I hate to say it, but this kind of is like a war movie more than it is a kaiju movie.
Yes.
It's a tough one, man. I don't know if like the symbolism or like there's a lot. Here's the thing. I can't tell if the movie is too smart for me, and I just, because of that, I don't get it, or did I miss something, or it's just not really a kaiju movie. It's just like the kaiju is very like in the background of this movie. But this just really seemed like a really hardcore war movie to me.
Yeah.
And it was even hard for me to take notes at certain points because I just couldn't like look away, or like there were moments in this movie where I was just bawling my eyes out. I just wasn't expecting how heavy and serious this movie is. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe I wonder if there's something that I'm missing, or if it's just like a little over my head or too smart for me, or if really there just isn't very much kaiju in this movie. And I don't know.
I don't think you're missing anything. I hated this movie. I fucking hated it. Everybody in it is an asshole.
Well, everybody in it is in a war.
No, but even before they go to war, they're assholes. And then,
Yeah.
But I've seen war movies where everybody's not an asshole.
Well, I think that in the beginning when they're very like playing on this, like, this guy, he's poor, he comes from, like a projects of sorts, and he's living very much that life. And they really try to like play this up of like, or not play it up, but just like it's heavily focused on. And so, yeah, in like very poor communities, there are very much like these assholes, I think. And I don't know, I really sympathized with a lot of people in this movie, and there were some like character arcs that I could appreciate, but for a very different podcast, I think.
I think they were trying to give our main guy an arc
Yeah.
but I'm not sure having him just start out completely unlikable and then trying to get me to like him is the way to go. But let me give a little background before we get too much further into that.
Okay.
So, Monsters, directed by Gareth Edwards, who then, because of Monsters, got hired to direct Godzilla and was therefore unavailable to write or direct Monsters 2. So he's just listed as a producer, and they basically told these guys, do whatever you want as long as there's monsters in it. So they didn't tell them they had to make a specific kind of movie.
Sorry.
So it is basically set in the same world in that there's this infected zone, but now it's moved over to the Middle East somehow from Mexico. But they obviously they decided, let's make a war movie, but we're contractually obligated to throw some monsters in here. So
That makes sense. Okay.
it could have just been a war movie. I don't know that I would have enjoyed it any more. I would have made it the war more between the humans and the monsters instead of Americans.
The humans, yeah.
And Jordanians, Saudi Arabians, Muslims, whatever. This is very much about the modern wars of the late 20th, early 21st century.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, but with monsters.
Yeah.
And similarly to the first movie, though, I think the locals are kind of not sweating the monsters that much.
Yeah.
It's the Americans that are
yes.
causing all the trouble.
I agree,
So,
yeah.
I think they're trying to say something about the war and the futility of war and these wars in particular. But I don't know that they really succeeded, and they certainly didn't tell me anything interesting about the monsters. And like I said, I hated everybody in it.
Well, the
like
things when they do the parts that show you the monsters, I can't understand what's happening. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I don't feel, I'm like, but it makes sense. Like you were saying, they were just like, do whatever as long as there's monsters in it. It very much feels that way. Like, and here's a random scene of monster shit that you will not understand. And back to war. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get it.
Yeah. You mean just you couldn't understand, like, physically what was happening on screen?
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
of the way it was shot?
Not because of the way it was shot, but it just like okay, sorry, 1 second. For example, there's like a part where this kid has like a tiny little baby kaiju in a box, right? And then like they're like looking at it. They do this back and forth thing where they look at it, and then the kid hands him the box, and then the guy takes it out, and the kaiju like does his little kaiju roar thing, and then he just like jumps into the sand, spews out a bunch of spores, like spins around and is gone, and then they just stare at each other, and I'm like, okay. Like, what? Like, I just don't, like, I don't understand. What are you trying to tell me right now? Or, like, what is, I don't, and there's several moments like that. When he's, like, with the woman, like, the village woman, and they go back to the bus, and they're, like, watching the giant kaiju, like, find its, like, dying other friend, and then stabs it, and all the, like, spores go into, like, I'm like, what is happening? What is like, why? I don't understand. I just don't understand. Well, I don't get it. I just really don't. All of the like monster shit, I just didn't understand, and I don't understand how it's connected in any way to the first movie. Like, I don't get it.
That's perfectly fine. I don't blame you at all.
Okay.
So let's get into the plot here, but I'm going to have a lot of... This is from Wikipedia. Thank you, Wikipedia. 10 years after the events of the previous film, identical extraterrestrial life forms to those spread throughout the Mexico-United States border region have appeared in the Middle East. And yeah, they don't give us a lot of detail of, did they just somehow spread there? If they're there, why aren't they everywhere? Or did another thing land? They don't give us any detail.
They do this thing in the opening credits where they kind of give us like a montage of how we got to this like next 10 years in like news articles and newscasts, but it really has nothing to do with the area or location. It's mostly just like, you know, monsters.
Yeah. But if they went all the way from Mexico to the Middle East, then it seems like they should have infected everywhere in between as well.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be a isolated infected zone. It should be just everywhere now. After giving their goodbyes to various family members and visiting a dogfight featuring an infant creature, 4 closely knit friends from Detroit, Michael Frankie Inkelar and new Father Williams, are U.S. Army soldiers deployed to the Middle East for their first tour, as they must deal with the creatures dubbed monsters by the military and a new insurgency on the rise. Okay, let's talk about Williams for a second.
Yeah.
Jesus, this is the unlikable part.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, this poor guy, he's the black guy, so of course he is going to die first. He also just had a baby, which just
like
doubles
that
his
day.
yeah
Like,
doubles
that
his
day.
chances. Yeah, but that doubles the likelihood that he is going to die first. The thing, so his wife's had a baby at home, not in the hospital, at home, and then he's like, "Well, I'm going out with my friends now," and she's like, "You're doing what?" He's like, "Baby, it's our last night in town. You're about to go off with them. You don't need to go out." This just made me so mad.
Same.
Like,
yeah.
you're supposed to be making me like this guy. And the reason I mentioned that it's a home birth is because it's not like she is in a hospital where the nurses and doctors are like, okay, you need to go now, you know, or where he's going to have to sleep in a chair next to her or some shit. Or, you know, if she were in a hospital, leaving her for a little while would make more sense, I think. You still probably might not do it, at least certainly in modern times. Yeah, back in the 1950s, you would have just left her there. But the fact that she's just at home, just to me made it even worse. That he's just going to go out and party with his friends now because we're shipping out tomorrow.
Yeah, and what's worse is his friends are all there encouraging, like, basically telling her, like, oh, come on.
Right.
You know, like,
Well,
let's let him go.
Except the one guy that I feel like had a little bit of a crush on her and wished it was his baby.
Ew.
He seemed to be more concerned about her and her feelings than her actual husband was. So, but also not just her, but the baby. You're about to go away to war. You want to spend a couple more hours with your baby. And you've been there with the baby for maybe a half an hour, 20 minutes. So this just made me hate all of them.
Yeah.
But him in particular, but all his friends too.
Right.
Because they should not have been encouraging that nonsense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then it's funny because the very next scene, they're not even like out partying yet. They're just playing basketball. Like, sir, you just had a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're partying with, you know, like hookers and heroin or I don't know what. And also a dog fight and just,
So I think that
unpleasantness.
the dog fight proves to be like kind of important in the character arc sense later, because we see this like dog fight moment and we see all of this group of friends like, yeah, like, tear it apart, and this little kaiju and the dog situation happening. And when the dog starts getting hurt, the, you know, main character or whatever walks away. He doesn't really want to see this dog getting hurt, which I feel like they're trying to like show us that he like has some sort of like empathy or sympathy or what the fuck ever, because later in the movie we see this guy kind of snap after he goes through like a lot of shit, and he's, you know, beating the fuck out of a man with a metal pipe, and it's kind of this like we see that growth. I wouldn't call it growth, but we see that arc, or we see that change from like dogfight to then. And so I kind of like understood why the dogfight was important once they show his snap moment of like, but it's crazy. This movie is very, I don't know if it's because I'm a little sensitive to this storyline of like in the beginning of the movie, the main character goes through this, well, I didn't really want to join the army, but I didn't really have anything else to do. Like, what was I going to do instead? Like, sell crack? You know, like, it's the only way I'm going to get out is if I, like, join the military type situation. And I kind of feel like that's a very real thing. And it feels a little close to home to me because, you know, I had like an older sister who went into the military. She went in 2003 when there was a war going on, and she was in Afghanistan, and it fucked her up. And then she came home and tried to be a normal person, but it really never was the same. And then she killed herself. And so this like storyline is very like, you know, intense to that of like, I didn't really have anything else to do, but I'm going to join the military. And then you take these kids who are poor and just off the street fuck it heads, you know, and you take them and you put them in a war, and these very real things happen where there are people around them dying, and they're trying to, you know, figure out how to stay alive. And I don't know if maybe that's why it was just a very heavy storyline in this movie, and the things that they go through and the things that they see, it just really distracted me from the kaiju. And then anytime there was a kaiju, I'd be like, oh shit, what? Oh, okay. And I try to like pay attention to it, but I just couldn't understand it. And so I don't know. Yeah. It's crazy. This movie is very heavy. Like, I feel like trigger warning to a lot of things that like happen in this movie feel very real in a sense of like war, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a fun movie at all.
Yeah.
Let's see. They meet their team leaders, Forrest and Frater. Frater, who has already gone through 9 tours, has become estranged from his wife and daughter, who he says is afraid of him. And the other guy, Forrest, just is mean. Doesn't he just come in and start yelling at everybody? Like, you know, like a stereotypical movie sergeant or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think there's one point where they fuck up and he's kind of justified, but he just starts off just at a 10 in a hostility and nowhere to go from there.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's also like part of his character building, because he starts off as this like, he's, you know, typical like, hey, this is a war, like you need to get serious, like I don't care about your fucking emotions. But then they have the little scene where they're like playing football or whatever straight people play to touch each other, and the guy Williams gets mad at him, and they have this moment where he's like, yeah, like that's what I need in combat, like that fire, like, and it kind of, and then we see another scene with him and you know, was it the Sergeant Frater? Where, you know, they're obviously good friends. They started out in the military together. He is calm. They're having a drink together. They're like joking together. So I think that's also like part of his character building of the movie, is like he's this like badass war veteran, war hero or whatever. But we see late that he has friends and is a person too or whatever. And apparently came from a similar situation as these kids, because Frater asks him like, damn, were we like that? And he's like, or no, Forrest asks Frater, were we like that? And he's like, you were, you know, when we first started, like, you were like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
On their first mission, they investigate a farmhouse and interrogate the owner. During the encounter, one of the gigantic creatures wanders past the group and they gun it down. 3 months into their tour, they receive a search and rescue mission for 4 soldiers who have gone missing along a particularly active area. And this, we see this all the time in the movies. This is bad math.
Yeah.
Because they're going to lose more people than they are setting out to rescue.
I do think the best line in the whole movie is at this part, though, when they get the mission and all of them are like going to get on the helicopter and the guy's like, let me take a picture. And they all turn around and they like take this really great picture. And he's like, I wanted to get one of all you guys while you still have your legs.
Yeah.
Like, God damn.
Yep. During a drive, the team's convoy hits a hidden IED, which disables both vehicles, killing Forrest and 2 of their team. Williams, disoriented by the explosion, wanders into another IED, which detonates, blowing his legs off. The group is then set under fire by insurgents. Rushing Williams to safety, Inkelar is unable to stabilize Williams, who dies shortly after. So I think there's insurgents for because they're bombing the monsters and they end up bombing people while they're doing it. So of course, people are upset about this. Which wasn't there a similar thing in the first movie?
Yes, it was the exact same in the first movie of where like they're literally just bombing and killing innocent people, trying to kill these monsters, and the people are like trying to fight trying to fight back. And it was the same in this. There's a moment in this though when they're first in the helicopter, like when they first get the mission, where it kind of shows the first quote unquote monster herd, and they're like, just sort of slowly walking through the desert, and it gave very like, I couldn't tell what the vibe they were going for was, but it seemed like ancient, like these ancient creatures, like with wisdom. Like, I don't know what gave me this impression, if it was the music or what, or the way the main character's like looking at them like, whoa, I don't know. But we don't ever see the monsters trying to hurt anybody or trying to like fight anybody, or they're literally like, even when the mine goes off in the wreck that we were just talking about, the monster is just running next to the vehicles. He's not attacking the vehicles. He's not doing anything. So it's very strange that the Americans just feel like, oh, we have to protect from the... Because I'm like, well, what are they doing? Like, they're not doing anything.
When we see these medium-sized ones, they are very much like horses or cattle or buffalo, and that they just tend to be running along in groups like any sort of quadruped might do. Bunch of gazelles, bunch of zebras. They could be anything. They just happen to be aliens, which I kind of liked. That was one of the few things I liked. Just these monster herds. Inkelar is unable to stabilize Williams, who dies shortly after. Forced to abandon his body, the 4 remaining escape on foot. I think I didn't really make any notes, but I seem to recall thinking a couple of times that they neglected to take anyone's dog tags when they die. And that was bugging me, because that's what they're there for. And I think I remember seeing the dog tags and then nobody making any effort. You're supposed to take one and leave one with the body if you're not able to do anything with the body at that time. And,
well, when they had to leave Williams, it was rough. Like, I was like crying because it's a long scene and it's very intense. Like, his legs have been blown off. They have to like carry him to this building to take cover. Everyone's kind of in shock. Only the sergeant is like kind of has his wits about him because he's been on 8 tours or whatever. So, and this is like their lifetime childhood best friend. He just had a baby at home. They're trying to keep him awake and alive while there's all of this like gunfire and shit going on behind them. It's very intense, and they can't save him, obviously. He's just sitting there against this wall, like, no legs. It's just, it's so fucking sad. It's the very beginning of the sad in this movie, like, of where it just shows shit that I feel like is maybe a little too real, for the screen, or for, like, these movies in particular, for, like, a kaiju movie in general. like we do see like the, you know, the movies that like make us feel shit, like Godzilla or in Kong. We have these moments that we're like, oh my gosh, like, and we feel the things. But this is not something that I want a kaiju movie to make me feel, you know. And I was crying when they had to leave Johnny behind, when they had to leave Williams behind. And the movie it just escalates from there. So hold on to your socks.
After finding another shelter and while recovering from what has happened, Inkilar is killed by a sniper while
Headshot.
Frankie is wounded before a group of insurgents surround them. Frater leads the others into surrendering. After being captured, Michael and Frater are bound and forced to watch as Frankie bleeds to death in front of them. And I think Frankie and Michael were the closest, like,
Yeah.
Frankie was Michael's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I think they tell us this.
Yeah,
That
he
night,
tells us in
Frater
the
uses-
beginning, yeah, like that whenever he was in foster care or whatever, that this guy was all he had.
Yeah. That night, Frater uses the distraction of an approaching creature to disarm and kill one of the guards, and the two of them escape on motorcycles, determined to finish their mission. After the bikes run out of gas, they continue eastward until they encounter a destroyed school bus. As Frater searches for water, Michael encounters a boy still alive. They briefly debate euthanizing him until they are rescued by locals, who feed them and give them water in gratitude for saving the boy's life. Well, temporarily. Michael wanders off with Ara. They didn't tell us who Ara was, but he wanders off with her, as she's one of the local girls. As they witness one of the creatures spreading luminescent spores through the nighttime desert around them, while Frater visits the boy who succumbs to his injuries. Frater tries to just choke out this boy.
Yeah.
And Michael stops him.
It's so hard.
Frater's trying to...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Frater's trying to be practical
Yeah.
in that before the other people show up, he's like, we don't have enough water. We should just put him out of his misery.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not going to be able to save him. So we should just help him move on.
Mm-hmm.
Although why he doesn't just use a bullet to do this, why he tries to strangle him is a little weird, because that doesn't seem...
He doesn't strangle him, but he does suffocate him, yes.
It doesn't... Yeah, he puts his hand over his mouth. It just doesn't seem like, if you're trying to end his suffering as quickly as possible, that doesn't seem like the best way to do it.
I think it might be because the kid is, you know, like he's like blinking his eyes open. I think maybe, I don't know. I really don't. I don't even fucking know what I'm trying to justify here. But I will say in the like scene before this, we kind of see, you know, the sergeant kind of be a badass when he like stomps a dude's head in, and it's like very intense. And then like when they escape, and then they get to this bus, and there's this kid who's alive, and he's still very much like, we got to help him to the other side. And I think the biggest reason why he chooses to, you know, suffocate him is because they have to have this fight back and forth. But what I didn't understand about this scene is, why do we have to have it multiple times? You know, it's like he puts his hand over it and he like lets him do it for a minute, and then he's like, no, stop. And then he stops, and then he thinks about it, does it again, lets him do it for a minute, and is like, no. I'm like, okay, well, let's fucking make a decision here, because like this is so much worse. You know, oh man, crazy.
Frater visits the boy who succumbs to his injuries. Frustrated at their failure to save the boy, Frater angrily reminds Michael of their mission, and the two continue east toward a settlement their men would have gone to. However, they discover there that the soldiers they were meant to rescue had all been killed prior to their arrival, probably prior to them even leaving on this mission. So not only did we lose more people than we were going to save, but the guys they were going to save are not savable. So this
Yeah.
mission is getting a complete waste.
Well, and so okay, let's go back a second to the spores in the desert with the village lady. Like, what are we looking at? Like, what is this telling us? What information are we gaining from this scene? What is happening? I don't understand.
Well, it's similar to the scene in the first movie, I think, where they see that the monsters are mating. Mm-hmm. And we're just seeing that they're not monsters, they're just creatures who are just doing what creatures do. They're just living things that are just doing what living things do. And they're not trying to hurt us, we just kind of get in their way.
In the way, yeah.
And this was just another sort of showing us the creatures just in a visually beautiful way, just doing what they do. And I think it was also meant to show us that they're not monsters, they're just things that are different from us doing their thing. And also he's not trying to kill the monsters, he's just watching them.
Yeah.
And I think maybe just to make us feel how pointless this whole thing is, that maybe we should just let the monster, just try to live with the monsters instead of wipe them out.
I see. Well, when he comes back to the, sergeant, and he punches him, and he says, the only thing keeping you alive. Oh, well, before this, we get a little conversation between the sergeant and the main character where he's like, do you know your dad? Or he's like, what does your dad do for a living? Like, do you have family? He's like, I don't know. I never met him. And then the sergeant gives us this story about like what he does when he gets home after being on a tour. And that is, go to this, he takes the bus. He doesn't get picked up from the barracks. He takes the bus and then he walks to this like shitty store, like Korean store on the side of, wherever, and gets a really cold beer and then walks home. And the last time he did this, his his wife always answers the door with his daughter, and the last time he did this is when he says that his daughter was afraid of him and didn't really know who he was. And the guy asks him, well, why didn't you stay there and sit on your porch and drink your beer? And he says, I'm here to keep her safe. And he says, do you think that's what we're doing? And he says, yes, I do. And this moment it feels important to me, that we get kind of this, just this moment with these two men, but also I can't tell how genuine. Does he actually think that he's keeping her safe? There's something like off about this moment. I feel like it's trying to show me something, or there's some sort of symbolism here that I'm just like not picking up. And then we see, the monsters in the desert moment, and I'm like, what? Why am I not understanding this? And then they have the moment where he's like, you're not a fucking hero, you don't get to feel, you don't deviate, you do not question, you're only alive because of this mission. And it kind of makes me go like, okay, well, that's why he's the sergeant. He's been in several wars, he understands, or several situations, he's desensitized, this is why he has survived. But then after that, we have the moment with the baby kaiju in the box, and I'm just like, I keep seeing these moments and feeling like I'm supposed to be getting some sort of symbolism from them, or they're happening for a reason, and I'm just not understanding them. And at this point with the baby kaiju in the box, there's only 20 minutes left of this movie, and I'm thinking, well, how the fuck are they gonna wrap all of this up and make it make sense to me? And they really don't. Sarge just fucking loses his marbles and starts hurting innocent people because the mission that he was saying, you don't get to feel, you don't deviate, you don't question, you stick to the mission. It's the only thing that is keeping you alive. I think he's really telling himself that. And then we see him kind of realize that you're not keeping your daughter safe. The mission is horseshit. Why are you here? And he kind of loses it and starts, hurting innocent people. And I don't know. I feel like I want to understand what's happening, but I just don't. And maybe that's just my tiny, smooth, normie brain that doesn't understand war, but I don't understand.
Well, we're at that part now. So, that now enraged by the futility of their mission and the lives lost, Frater snaps and kills one of the villagers. Michael is forced to shoot him, to keep him from killing the rest of the family. Yeah, Frater commits a war crime right here. These people... Doesn't appear that these people killed the soldiers, but they have wrapped them in... They've actually taken care of their bodies. They've treated their bodies respectfully. They've wrapped them in shrouds and laid them out, and it seems like they're kind of keeping watch over them, maybe even praying for them.
Yeah.
But he loses it, and he shoots this guy. So Michael doesn't want him to kill any more innocent people, so he shoots him. Violent tremors prompt Frater to wander out of the village as Michael follows him to their extraction point. So he shoots him, but he doesn't actually kill him. He just wounds him. Or maybe he's wearing some kind of flak vest so it doesn't penetrate, but it does kind of, bruise him. I don't remember.
No, I think it does. It does kill him, just not right away.
Okay. As an enormous creature emerges from the sands in front of them, Frater collapses and dies from his injury. There you go, right there. The evac helicopter comes in and picks up Michael, who looks on in silence as the scene cuts to black. Did he not have some closing narration?
No, he didn't. And the thing is what is so crazy about this is like the way that they show it. It's like Frater collapses, he's dead, the monsters are coming, we see the helicopter, but then the next thing we see is just like Michael's face, and he screams, and it's like he doesn't realize that he's on the helicopter yet. He's still kind of like in this state of shock, and it isn't until like we sort of hear the helicopter sounds come in and realize, oh, he has been evacuated, and the movie just ends that way. No words, no nothing, just him kind of coming out of shock and realizing that he has been evacuated.
Yeah. So I think, the point of this movie seems to be that war, or at least these particular wars, are wars futile.
What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
That these wars are futile and pointless. I don't know that it's necessarily saying all war is, but definitely these particular types of wars. It's not trying to say we shouldn't have fought Hitler. It's not a World War II movie. It is a modern Middle Eastern war movie, which have a tendency to be much more morally ambiguous than World War II. But I think they failed to use the monsters in an effective way as any kind of metaphor for anything. This didn't seem like a good movie. It wasn't a good use of the kaiju as a metaphor for something, which there's a long history of that in these movies. Then going all the way back to Godzilla, that the monster's a metaphor for something, and even most recently in Godzilla -1, where he's very much a metaphor for the war. It just doesn't quite work in this movie, I don't think.
Yeah.
I failed to mention our cast at the beginning, so let me do it now. Johnny Harris as Noah Frater, Sam Keeley as Michael Parks, Joe Dempsey as Frankie McGuire, Jesse Nagay as Ryan Conway, Nicholas Pinnock as Sergeant Forrest, Parker Sawyers as Sean Williams, Kyle Solar as Carl Incalar, Sophia Butella as Ara, and Michael Cole as Kelly. The only one of those I have heard of, and I wouldn't have known this a couple hours ago. Sophia Butella, I was just watching her most recent movie this afternoon. She just coincidentally, I didn't realize, I had not recognized her. She's in The Killer's Game, which is a Dave Bautista hitman movie. It's kind of a hitman comedy thing, action comedy sort of thing, that's on Stars right now. It just came out in 2024. She's been in a lot of stuff I've seen, but I did not, when I was watching this a few weeks ago, I did not go, oh, it's that girl from those things. So, and even when I was watching her today, I did not say, "Oh, she was the girl in the Monsters." I didn't recognize her at all. So, there you go. Jesus. So, Honeybee, what are you going to rate Monsters Dark Continent?
I really don't know because I feel like as far as kaiju goes, I did like the kaiju, especially, in comparison to the first movie. We didn't get to see as much of the kaiju in the first movie, which makes sense. I feel like that's appropriate for a sequel. But I did like the things that we did in this movie with the kaijus, like seeing the little baby and then like the bigger one fighting the pit bull and kind of seeing more of an evolution of these. And then like the teenage version, like running next to the truck. So I did feel like we got to see more of the kaiju in this film, although I think the first movie did a better job with the symbolism of the kaiju in the first one. But I don't know because I do feel like the things in this movie that are shown well, in a sense of like war being, pointless, and all of these people who have families at home and real lives and maybe not the best backgrounds, maybe the best backgrounds, like it doesn't really matter. These things happen and they're disgusting, and I think that there's something important about seeing these things and them feeling so real, but that has nothing to do with our show. So I really don't know how to rate this movie, because I don't know if I should be rating it based on the fact that it is a kaiju film, or is it based on the things that didn't make sense to me, or is it like I'm really unsure, because I did feel this movie does make you feel things, and I do feel like it kind of gives you a peek into. There was another movie that was made, not very recently, but in the recent years. But I think it's called is it like Fury or something like that, where it's like it follows these guys in a tank, and it's a war film, and I'm looking to see if that's what it's called, Fury. Yeah. It was actually the same year, 2014. Yeah, yes, okay. So this movie, it's very good, but it does show these men in war, and it's very intense, and you get to see things that I feel like are very realistic, and I can really appreciate that, and I appreciate that about this film. And if I was rating it on that, based on that glimpse that you get to see in a world that is not part of your own, that kind of makes you like appreciate your problems and your own world, then I would say it's 5 stars, because it really does show you in grave detail these things. But based on our show and monsters and fun things and things that, because even like Godzilla is based on heavy shit, right? Like that's real shit, and it's heavy, and it does make you, stop and think, and that is a part of our show in that sense. But there's some sort of disconnect with this film, and I really don't know how I feel about it, to be honest.
I mean, you should just rate it on whether or not you enjoyed it. Don't worry about how well it fits our show in particular.
Well, but that's the thing is, I don't know if I did enjoy it, but that's kind of, you don't want to watch someone get their legs blown off and enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, so, okay, let me tell you what, I'm giving it 1 star. I hated this movie. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say that it's badly made. It's competently made. Everybody gives a fine performance. The effects are fine. The war action is done, I'm not looking at it going, oh, that looks fake, that looks like trash. It's all very competently made, but I did not enjoy it in any way. And even I didn't, maybe enjoy is not even the right word, because I didn't feel like I got anything, because you can watch a movie that's unpleasant, but you still feel like you got something out of it. You learned something, or you felt something, or whatever. I think a good example is maybe Jacob's Ladder. That is not exactly a pleasant film, but it is, I'm glad I watched it. I never need to watch it again, but I'm glad I watched it the one time I did. I don't feel glad that I watched this movie. And I think for me, really, the biggest problem was just that I did not like any of the main characters. And that's not that hard of a thing to fix. You could still have tried to do the same movie and made the same points and just given me a little more of saving the cat at the beginning to give me some reason. Because it is way late in this movie when our hero tries to save a child. Show him doing that earlier in the movie. Show him doing something before he leaves Detroit, rather than showing them leave the newborn baby and the new mother to go drink and do drugs. Show them doing something positive before they go off to war, so that I give a shit about these guys. And look, it's got a 17% score on Rotten Tomatoes, so we're not the only ones who maybe did not care for this film.
Well, I think I really do care for it. It just in a really weird way, because I really appreciate how realistic it is, in the sense of that these people are unlikable. And I think that the fact that they're out partying and doing drugs before they're getting deployed is very realistic of, someone who comes from, they don't have any family, they've grown up on the streets their whole life, all of these things. And I can appreciate that, like, kind of, just reality. And so I love, that's what I love about this film, is I feel like the reality of it is, it's just a little bit overwhelming and kind of disgusting. And I just really, really appreciate that about this film, especially when it comes to the war things. And I think for that reason that I would recommend it to people who enjoy opening that world or looking into that world, like war films, like the movie Fury that I was talking about before. And it's just kind of strange that the kaiju is just kind of thrown in there. That's a little bit of an odd part. But I think that because of the reality of the movie that, like, they kind of play with, and it is well made, I think that I'm going to give it 5 stars. But as far as kaiju movie goes, I'm a little bit confused about it.
Okay. Well, that might be the furthest apart we've been in our ratings.
I don't think so. It happens pretty often that I give something 5 stars and you give it 1.
One has it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, folks. That's going to wrap it up for this week. It's not, if you want to watch this movie, it's on Stars, and that's about it. I think you could probably buy it or rent it other places, but
yeah. But trigger warning, it's not a fun movie. It's not pleasant. Don't watch it, before you go to church or something. Before you need to be happy. It's going to make you very sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Next week's movie is Bermuda Tentacles. And if you want to watch that one first, it's on Peacock and a bunch of other stuff. But I think if you watch it on Peacock, they'll show you the ads up front, and then you can watch it uninterrupted. I don't remember. I think that's how I watched it. It might have broken in with ads during it. I don't know. It's fine. It's not The Asylum, but it is a sci-fi original, so
basically it is.
Yeah. That'll do it for this week. Thanks for joining us, folks. Remember to like and subscribe and rate and review and check out our Patreon. Until next week, I have been Precious D.
And I have been Honey Bee.
Remember to keep calm and take shelter in basements.
And please don't misuse science.
We won't see you, but you will hear us next time on Monster Movie Fun Time Go. You've been listening to Monster Movie Fun Time Go, If you enjoyed the show, please consider rating and reviewing us on your podcasting platform of choice. You can leave us a message and find links to all our things at mmftg.com.